Hi, my name's Jodie Bush, and for this unit, I've been looking at the question of whether punishment is an effective behaviour modification strategy in children. Now, for this presentation, I specifically want to look at a study that was carried out by Lansford and her team into the reciprocal relations between parents' physical discipline and children's externalising behaviour during middle, childhood, and adolescence. So the rationale behind this is that while there's significant research into physical discipline of children and externalized behaviors, the bidirectional relationship between the two is less well understood. So the aim of this study was to examine whether there is a reciprocal nature between physical punishment and behavior problems over time. Their hypothesis was that yes, there would be a transactional relationship and that physical punishment of children would lead to an increase in externalized behaviors, which would in turn increase the likelihood of further physical punishment. So to examine this hypothesis, they used data from two longitudinal studies that took place in the United States, the Child Development Project and the Pitt Mother-Child Project. The Child Development Project was a multi-site study that was carried out in Indiana beginning in 1987 and 88. It included 585 families with children entering kindergarten, and it covered boys and girls. It had European American and African American families, and also included single parent and two parent families. The Pitt Mother-Child Project had 310 families involved, all with 1.5-year-old boys, and they were recruited from a nutritional supplement program that was taking place in Pittsburgh, starting in 91. It included only males. It had a cross-section largely between Euro-American and African-American families, and it had a high number of single-parent families. For the study in question, they only used samples that were taken when the boys were 10, 11, 12, and 15. So in terms of methods, the Child Development Program utilised home interviews with the mothers on an annual basis, and they asked some questions around the type of discipline they were using, including physical, as well as the frequency. They collected data on externalised behaviour by asking teachers to complete checklists where they rated the prevalence of behaviours and the type of behaviours exhibited, such as fighting or disobedience. The Pitt Mother-Child Project also used home interviews and also interviews in a lab, and also looked at the type of punishments used and the frequency. In this case, however, the boys self-rated their behaviour using the self-reported delinquency questionnaire, and there were two versions of this, one for younger and one for older boys. And this looked at covert, destructive and non-destructive behaviours. The data was subjected to statistical analysis by Lansford and her team. They used a multi-group model coupled with cross-lag paths and the free versus constrained model. And this was to moderate for the impact of ethnicity, gender, and the severity of discipline. They also dealt with missing data by using the full information maximum likelihood approach. And then this allowed them to compare results between the two different studies. So what they found was that the results bore out their hypothesis that physical punishment in early childhood does result in a transactional reinforcement of escalating behaviour issues followed by harsher punishment, and that this bidirectional relationship held regardless of gender, of socioeconomic status, and whether the physical punishment was harsh or mild. Now, the findings of this study are useful because it could help parents understand the long-term impacts of using physical punishments with their children, and it could also provide valuable insights for teachers, paediatricians, and psychologists who are dealing with children on a regular basis. And this could allow them to help form new interventions and also to advise parents on the best strategies for managing behaviour issues with their children. The key strengths of this project is that it did use two longitudinal studies and had quite a breadth in terms of participants, and also the fact that it was bidirectional, taking evidence of both punishment and behaviour and the way that this changed in prevalence over time. This gave great insight into the transactional nature of punishment and behaviour. The study itself was also well designed, and it explained its methods and its limitations very effectively, which helps with the design of future research. In terms of limitations, the CDP had a really good spread of gender, locations and socioeconomic groups. The PCMP was more limited, however, as it only included boys and low socioeconomic groups. The key limitation identified was that it was mother-reported physical punishment, which not only could be misrepresented, but it also entirely ignores the punishments provided by fathers. Children's behaviour in the PCMP was also self-reported, which could lead to inaccuracies. And more importantly, it doesn't account for factors such as genetics and environment. Now, this is a good segue into the possibilities for future research, because there is a need to understand the interplay between genetics and environment and the use of physical punishment as well as delinquent behaviour. And this is underscored by the fact that there was a stronger link between low socioeconomic families and the prevalence of externalised behaviours and the prevalence of physical discipline. There is also some opportunity to understand the effectiveness of or ineffectiveness of other punishments and the benefits of discipline versus no discipline, and this isn't discussed in this study. This gives a quick overview of the references if people viewing this presentation are interested in following it up, and I thank you for taking the time to listen.